It is often described as the graveyard of empires. And while that phrase can sound dramatic, it is based on a pattern that has repeated itself more than once. Because for centuries, powerful nations have entered Afghanistan believing they could control it, and over time, many of them discovered that controlling it was something else entirely. Part of the explanation lies in the landscape itself. Afghanistan is not easy ground to operate in. Much of the country is dominated by the Hindu Kush, a vast mountain system that cuts across the region, dividing it into isolated valleys and difficult terrain. Moving large forces through these areas is slow. Keeping them supplied is even harder, and holding territory across such terrain presents a constant challenge. Even when major cities are secured, large parts of the countryside often remain beyond effective control. And that, in turn, creates space for resistance to continue. But geography alone does not explain it. Afghanistan has long been shaped by local power structures rather than strong central authority. Influence is often tied to tribes, regional leaders, and shifting alliances, and control in one region does not automatically extend to another. This creates a situation where an external force may believe it has stabilized the country, while, in reality, resistance is already reorganizing somewhere else. Over time, this environment tends to favor a particular kind of warfare, not large, decisive battles, but smaller, localized engagements, units that know the terrain, move quickly, strike when the opportunity presents itself, and withdraw before a larger force can respond. And in conflicts like this, time becomes a critical factor, because even a well-equipped army with superior resources and training can find itself gradually drawn into a prolonged effort, one that becomes increasingly difficult to sustain. This pattern has appeared more than once. In the 19th century, the British Empire became involved in Afghanistan, initially aiming to install a government that would align with its strategic interests. At first, British forces entered Kabul and established control, but holding that position proved far more complicated. By 1842, following a major uprising, British forces began a withdrawal from the city. What followed was one of the most devastating retreats in British military history. A column of around 16,000 people, including soldiers and civilians, attempted to move through the mountain passes, and only a handful are believed to have survived the journey. Although Britain would return to Afghanistan later in the century, it never established full control. Instead, it adjusted its approach, maintaining influence without attempting to govern the country directly. More than 100 years later, the Soviet Union entered Afghanistan under very different circumstances, but encountered familiar challenges. In 1979, Soviet forces intervened to support a government facing internal instability. Major cities were secured relatively quickly, but outside those areas, resistance began to take shape. Groups operating in rural and mountainous regions adapted to the terrain, using mobility and local knowledge to their advantage. Over time, the conflict shifted into a prolonged insurgency. Despite repeated operations, the Soviets were unable to fully suppress resistance. After nearly a decade, they withdrew in 1989. The United States and its allies would later face a similar situation. Following the events of 2001, military operations removed the existing regime from power within a relatively short period. But as time went on, insurgent groups reorganized, particularly in areas where central control was limited. What followed was not a single decisive campaign, but a long and complex effort to maintain stability across the country. And, as in previous conflicts, that effort proved difficult to sustain over the long term. After nearly 20 years of involvement, U.S. forces withdrew in 2021. Looking at these events together, certain patterns become clear. In each case, an external power was able to achieve initial success, but maintaining long-term control required far more than military strength alone. Afghanistan does not defeat armies in a single moment. There is no single battle that explains it. Instead, it presents a set of conditions, terrain, local dynamics, and the nature of the conflict itself that over time make prolonged control increasingly difficult. And that is why the country continues to be studied so closely. Not because it is impossible to enter, but because it is exceptionally difficult to hold.